Dear Mother, welcome to Sana Mama, a space to honour the unspoken truths of mothering, where birth and death, joy and heartbreak intertwine. Here we hold space for the stories we don't always share, beyond the polished ideals and into the raw and real, through the tender spaces of loss, life, and everything in between. For the mothers who carry their children in their arms, and for those who carry them in their hearts, Sana Mama is a place to explore the infinite ways mothering shapes and reshapes us. May we grieve, connect, and celebrate together, to embrace the messy, beautiful truth of this journey, and to remind one another that none of it has to be carried alone. This is Sana Mama, a letter to all mothers. Hi, darling.
Hello.
Thanks for joining me on Sana Mama.
Thanks for having me.
It's been a big 6 months, hasn't it?
Right.
Well, actually, how long has it been for you?
I'm 4 months.
For 4 months.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay.
4 months.
Yeah, 2 months after, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you for joining. I'm so honoured to share your story. Obviously, I've read it and I was connected with you very, very early on after you lost Maple. Yeah, and it's just really nice to have you and be able to connect again.
Yeah, thank you. No, I'm so pumped to be here, and it'll be the first time that I'm sharing Maple's story in like a talk space since the first week when I had my birth debrief with my whole team. So it feels big, but I'm willing and I'm here, and I'm just so stoked with what you're doing with Sana Mama. I think it's so important.
Thanks. Well, I'd love to start with what your journey into motherhood looked like. Did you always know you wanted to be a mum?
Oh, absolutely. I feel like I wanted to be a mum from like 8 years old. I feel like when people would say, what do you want to be when you grow up? It's like a mum.
Yeah.
And then obviously I started teaching because, being with children is like a passion of mine. And then obviously I had Olive almost 4 years ago, 4 years in May. Nige and I always knew that we wanted to keep building our family, and we take great privilege and honour in being parents. So, yeah.
Beautiful. So Olive was born in
2021.
Wow.
Yeah, 2021. And that was like a journey all of itself, you know, the initiation into parenthood. We had all the dreams of the home birth, like, you know, the perfect home birth. But we actually ended up with an emergency cesarean with her. And it was just such that, like, I guess that pendulum swim of like what you want versus reality being two completely different things. And I think that was really big at the time, but it was humbling, like in all the ways that we probably needed. I really do trust that whatever unfolds for us is what we need in the time, even if it doesn't make sense. In hindsight, you can look back and think like, oh yeah, we kind of needed that, if that makes sense. But initiation into parenthood was massive because Oliver's just an emotional little being from day one. So we sort of had to learn to hold space for big feelings, and we still do. That's like never changed for our little Olive. But yeah, it's something that, as I said, we take like great honour and privilege in parenting her.
Yeah, she's so sweet too.
Thank you, not always.
Yeah.
You've got all the sides.
I'm seeing the little shy side of her before she opens up completely.
Yeah, the shy side's super sweet.
Yeah.
For sure.
Amazing. I guess I'm actually curious to know about within teaching. Obviously, you've been a teacher for
Since 2012.
Wow.
Yeah, long time. Yeah.
Like almost 15 years.
Yeah.
Soon.
Yeah. It's such a long time, but it's something that I really love.
Yeah. Within your career and Nigel's, have either of you ever come across families that have lost children?
No. We've had children who have lost parents within our like practice, but I've never had the opposite where it's been a child. No, I hadn't. That has been a very new experience.
Yeah. And very personal.
Yeah.
So what has been that experience for you? How did that all unfold?
In terms of Maple?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I feel like, do you want me to start in pregnancy? Is that the best place, or where would you like me to start?
Maybe let's go back to what you learned from Olive's birth experience and what it was like after that, choosing to birth.
Yeah. All right. Awesome. So, so obviously after Olive's birth, we had quite a traumatic birth experience in the hospital. I'd planned a home birth and then transferred, and at the point that we arrived to the hospital, I was 42 weeks plus 5. My waters had broken, and so the moment I stepped into that space, it was very much like, you're high risk, like this is not good, kind of scenario, which snowballed into emergency cesarean. And I really felt like the moment I stepped feet into that space, that all of my autonomy, all of my decision making was stripped from me. And it felt so disempowering. And I really felt like the whole time that I was in the hospital with Olive, I could almost hear the midwives, bickering or like just kind of gossiping around the fact that we'd waited that long before we presented, and they weren't supportive in helping me to breastfeed. In fact, I got back to the room, we were separated for like 3 hours. And so she wasn't able to come to recovery with me, which I later found out other women do get. So there was just felt like a lot of punishment for my decision making once I was in that space. So it didn't feel like, oh, thank goodness you're here, we can help. It was very much like, you're an idiot, you should have come earlier, that sort of vibes. So when, we were obviously separated. When we came back together, Olive and I, immediately I was trying to get the skin to skin. I knew we hadn't had that. I was trying to get her on the breast, and I was like buzzing for support. I'd obviously had my, emergency C-section, and the midwife ended up coming in. Oh, she'll get it. She'll figure it out if she's breast crawling, like literally hands off, weren't willing to help. And it was maybe about 4 a.m. in the morning that I buzzed again, and I was still distressed because she hadn't latched, that the midwife said, look, I'll put you on the list for the lactation consultant in the morning. You're clearly having trouble. She'll be here at 9. And just no one was willing to help. And obviously the moment I got back to the room that night, Nigel had to leave. So it was really just myself and Olive. And I just didn't put her down that whole night because I knew I'd missed out on the skin to skin. I was so overwhelmed that I wouldn't be able to breastfeed her. And then the lactation consultant came the next morning at 9 a.m. and she was like, oh, it's been too long. She's not going to be able to latch without a nipple shield. And I'd done all my research and I was like, well, if she goes on the nipple shield, she's going to get nipple confusion. I was very concerned about the effects of that. And she's like, look, you've got no choice if you want to breastfeed. So they got her latching with a finger onto the nipple shield and then onto my nipple. And we breastfed with that for 6 weeks. I ended up wanting to get out of the hospital within literally the 48-hour mark. I was allowed to escape. I was like, get me out of here. I just need to get home. I just felt super judged. And when I spoke to the midwife and broke down in tears and said, I just want to go. I just feel really judged. I feel like the people here don't understand my heart. I wanted to birth my baby at home because I wanted her born into a loving environment. I came here because I thought I needed help. And I just feel so judged, And so this midwife left and she came back and she's like, do you know what? There's a child protection form on the front of your file for Olive. And I've just said to the midwives, she was like, I now know what you're saying is true. And I've just said, enough is enough. This child is not at risk. This mother's at risk. She's just had a major surgery, but that child is loved, And just the thought of that, the thought that was sitting on the front and potentially a social worker was going to come in at some point, really just made me go further away from the system, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, that's an insane thing to do.
Yeah.
Someone's coming in because they're in distress, I want help, I need help. Oh, well, we're going to call CPS on you.
Yeah, because you put your child at risk during the pregnancy by going so far or long, or I don't even know what their reasonings were.
Did you have scans with Olive?
Yeah, I had both scans.
Yeah, so there was a medical history.
Yeah, there was a medical history. And in that case, I was under like a birth suite down there, like what do they call them? Like the practices that are like attached to the hospital, but they will do home births. I can't remember what they're called. Midwifery practice. Maybe, yeah. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I do, but I don't know the term for it either in my head
So
right now.
we were originally with that, but it was during like the rental crisis. Like Nige and I had been traveling Australia for 2 years, so we had not like worked out where we were going to actually like settle down to have this baby, and we were in Newcastle at the time. And so we're like, oh, well, we'll settle here. There's this midwifery practice that does home births and it's free and it's, you know, blah, blah. So we were initially connected to that. But it took us so long to find a rental because it was during like that COVID times. And when we finally landed the rental, it wasn't in the radius that they were willing to support. So we got a birth keeper, and then I laboured Olive at home for 96 hours before I was like, oh, no, I actually need to go and get support. Yeah. So, yeah, and then that's how it all unfolded. But it was just that whole... that just feeling that shame and like I'm a shit mom, like you don't understand like actually who I am at my core and my heart, like that really drove me further, like swung the pendulum of like I'm never going to step foot into a hospital like this again. Yeah.
Wow.
Until we did.
Yeah.
Until life goes, actually, yes you are.
No, you're still embedded in the system.
Yeah, you will still do this. So, yeah, that was our initiation to parenthood the first time. Wow. Wild.
Oh, babe, I didn't even realise that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think, like, it took myself but also Olive, like, so long of untying that birth. And even when I felt pregnant with Maple, things were coming up for Olive of, like, I can't be separated during birth time from mum. Like we were going to the kinesiologist, she was having all these big feelings, and it still stemmed back to that separation from birth all the way back then. So like the way that we're born really does have this huge impact on our psyche even 3 years later, or as a subsequent sibling coming through. We really, even though we felt like we'd done a lot of work with Olive and myself up until falling pregnant with Maple, it was so evident that there was more to do and unravel once she was actually in the womb.
Yeah, there's a book that I can't remember what it's called or who it's by. I'm so sorry, everyone. But they talk about the different way that babies are born and how that affects the rest of their life, because obviously you've got the limbic imprint, the birth imprint. Mm-hmm. And yeah, within C-sections, how because there was never that like compressing of the baby going through the birth canal, there's often what is seen with a C-section baby is that they're like hyper dependent on the mother and like really wanting to be close to her, like really wanting to cuddle up, like constantly be attached to the mum, because they never experienced that, like that cuddling almost like as they came through the birth canal.
For sure. And like the receptors actually turning on for breastfeeding, and there's so many layers to it. And I just feel like for our experience, it was like, you know, we have the range of normal and then the variations of normal, and if you are too far out of the variation, it's just like this is the pathway forward. And that just felt really disempowering. Yeah.
And so when you decided to conceive again, because I'm assuming it was by choice.
Yes.
Even if it was maybe a surprise in timing. What was that journey like for you guys?
Yeah, so we always wanted a 3-year gap. Obviously, to give a little bit of context, like my husband and I run a business together, and we have children like come to our programs, permaculture programs. And so Olive started that with us when she was 5 months old, just like strapped onto the front. And then the Sprouts, which is our littlies that we take in, they start at 3. And so we kind of wanted Olive to be a full sprout, not like a dependent sprout, before we considered having another baby. And so when that time sort of came, we actually experienced 2 miscarriages before having Maple. And I feel like they were just like initiations in and of themselves. Like Yeah, the first was 6 weeks and the first was 8 weeks and second was about 6 weeks. But both were very clear communicators in the spirit world. And so like I knew I was pregnant and, you know, but the first I knew, he told me like, I'm not staying. Like I'm coming to clear up your womb space so that you can have the birth that you're worthy and deserving of. And so it almost felt like they had a mission in my womb that was like beyond what I could comprehend, but it was almost like clearing what had happened with Olive in like a deeper way than what I could understand. And the first was a little boy and the second was a little girl spirit, and then they both left quite quickly. And to be honest, like I know miscarriages can be quite, you know, really hard on women. But for me, it was almost like I had that communication level that was like, no, this is as it's meant to be, you know, and that they had a purpose that I couldn't understand. So I didn't really, like I had ritual for both. Like we planted a tree and like poured my blood into the tree and like sort of honored them. But I didn't feel like, I guess that it impacted me too much until I fell pregnant with Maple. And then I had like this moment of like, oh, I need to get to a certain point before I can feel like really solid in the pregnancy. Until that point, I didn't feel like it had overly. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be, you're thinking, okay, like these are the points, these are the weeks where I should be fearful because I've just experienced these 2 miscarriages. And if I get past that, like I'm in the safe zone.
Yeah, absolutely. But I hadn't really consciously felt like I would feel that until I was in it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
Yeah. Oh, what you know now.
Totally.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Wild.
What was your pregnancy like with Maple?
So I was 5 weeks pregnant when we found out that our business was going to have to shut down. So that was a wild time. It was like we were so pumped that we were pregnant again, and then all of a sudden it was like, oh, there's just, you know, we have to shut our business down. And that was due to traffic complaints with council, and it was just like something that we couldn't, you know, parents dropping off, and we tried so many different variations and we ended up at the same like legislation of like, no, you can't continue running this. So that was really big. And so then we sort of had to let our families know. I felt like we were holding a lot in that first trimester, even though I was really quite sick. But it was just like a lot of holding like the feelings and emotions of the families, us, like everything that was going on. And then, we did like a visioning session and we're like, how do we keep this dream alive? And we decided we're going to move all of our curriculum online and create like this online community. And so that was really big because Nige and I have been teachers for over 10 years each, but like it was so different to go from like in person to like online. And there were so many skills we had to learn, like this like setup. Set up with cameras and like, you know, how do we model this and show this to parents that's like simple and what's a platform that we can bring the community together? And all of a sudden it wasn't local and people that knew us, it was more broader. So that was really like a huge transition for our family. But for the most part, I was well. And the first 16 weeks of my pregnancy, it was just like, we're free birthing. Like that's what's happening. Like there's no way that we're going to go and get a medical provider. We're not going down the path that we went last time. And then it's really interesting because on the same day, I was 16 weeks pregnant and one of my best friends from high school is a midwife, but in New South Wales. And I was just having a really open conversation with her, like, I'm just not willing to have a medical provider, you know, and was like, you know, I really do feel like you would be able to find somebody who would align with your values and be willing to respect what you're hoping for. And she's like, I just think you should still be open to finding someone. And I was like, oh yeah, interesting. But like, because I respect her so much, I was just like, yeah, I'm listening. And then that afternoon we went to an osteo appointment and the osteo was like, oh, who's your midwife? And I just, you know, one of those conversations. And I was like, oh, I haven't called one yet. And he was like, what do you mean? Like, who are you thinking? And I said the midwife's name because I knew this woman. She'd been the midwife of 2 of my closest friends that I'd attended their births the year before. Mm-hmm. And I had quite a good relationship with her. He's like, that's my wife's midwife, but like she's super hard to get into. Like you're 16 weeks. Like I don't know if you're gonna, and it was just really interesting that both of these things happened on the same day. And I'm one of those people who, like, I feel isn't like super dogmatic. Like if I feel like there's something coming into my path, I'm always curious, if that makes sense. And so I went home and I spoke to Nigel. I'm like, isn't this really interesting? Like I've had this conversation the same day. He's like, well, do you just want to like call her and like have a conversation? There's no harm in having a conversation and like putting out exactly what you want and see if that's available. I was like, yeah, okay. So anyways, I call this midwife, and as soon as she gets on the phone, she's ecstatic. She's like, oh my gosh, I've seen you, how you've shown up for your community in births. I would be honored to be at your birth. I said, yeah, I've been planning a free birth up until this point. So I just want to come in and speak to you and make sure like we're on the same page, if that's okay. She's like, yeah, absolutely. So we went in for this meeting, and she was like, very much, I was saying, well, I went to 42 plus 5. That's fine. I've gone to 43 weeks. My waters broke this. That's also fine unless there's meconium present. So like everything that I was saying, she was very much like meeting me with like, I honor that. I'm like, I don't want to have a scan, all the things. But interestingly, on the way to that appointment, my heart just started going boom, 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 like this intense. And I'm like not typically like a super anxious person. So it was like something that I was like, Nige, something doesn't feel right here. And I spoke to the midwife about it. I said, on the way here, I'm feeling these like overwhelming feelings. And I don't know if it's something that I just need to sit with. Like maybe it's a trauma response from Olive. Like I'm not really sure. And she was like, oh, okay. But then we left the appointment and we decided to pay the deposit to have her care. But between then and 30 weeks pregnant, I had 4 or 5 appointments with her. And every time I had this overwhelming sick feeling on the drive there. And it was like a 5-minute drive. And it was like, it was undeniable, like whole body, no. It's like a screaming no. And each time I say to Nigel, like, I'm not supposed to be here. I'm not supposed to be doing this. I don't know why. But again, I'm someone that like when I feel these feelings, it's like, I'm going to get to the bottom of it. I'm going to understand it. So there were 3 wise women in my community with different, I guess, practices, but very connected to like source, I guess, to universal knowing. I contacted all 3 of them. And across a 5-week period, I went to all 3 and I was like, this is what's going on for me. But I need to know that it's not trauma informed. I need to know that this is like an intuitive, like knowing that this is not right for me. And all 3 of them came back like, no, Ash, it's not right for you. Like this is intuition. You're not supposed to have this midwife. And so I let her go. Yeah, I let her go. I did one last appointment with her, which was like, this internal examination, and I like checked in. I'm like, am I supposed to do this appointment? I got a yes. And I was like, interesting. I'm like, I wonder if there's something structural internally, because it was like kind of a somatic release that will release from either Olive's birth or a reason why I couldn't birth Olive after all those hours. So again, I was like, I'm not sure why, but I need to go and do this appointment. And when I'm sitting in this appointment with this midwife, she's like, oh, just close your eyes. She led me through this meditation practice. I closed my eyes, and then she's like, just allow it to drop in like what we need to do today. And straight away it was like, can I trust you? Like, as in trust the midwife. And I was like, far out, do I actually say that? Like, how awkward. And I just said like, oh, it's about my trust in our relationship. And I could just tell immediately. She was like, oh, okay, I wasn't expecting that. But she was like, okay. And anyways, whenever she put her hands inside my body, I just clenched. And what I needed from that experience, because I actually left feeling super dissociated from my body, was the full knowing that I wasn't going to open up, that I didn't feel safe. And why? Like, I don't fully know, but like, it was like this is a full no, And so I think that's why I was led to like have that last appointment. And then I let her go, and then we continued back to our free birth path. So it's just interesting how, like when I talk about my story, it's like I was planning free birth, but then I like was like, no, all right, I'm open to this. And then it was like, no, we're not open to this. And so I've just went on my own little journey, which is such an Ash thing to do. But anyways, that's how it all played out.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm a very like sensitive, like no one's putting their hands inside me unless it's Tom
Yeah.
kind of person. And I've always found the internal exams to be probably like the most confronting thing for me to think about for a lot of reasons. But if your body's not willing to open up to someone, especially in the birth space, like that is a massive hindrance to like the natural process of birth taking place.
Yeah, and I had a lot of hands shoved up during Olive's birth, you know. And so, yeah, and this, like, this process, like, I felt comfortable with this midwife. So, and I knew that it was more like a somatic release, less so like, how many centimeters are you? Like, so it was like, I went in willing, but my body was like, no, every time. It was like, my head was willing, but my body was not. So that was, yeah, super interesting.
Yeah. So what were the last 10 weeks of your then reverting back to pre-birth experience like?
Yeah, I hit a point where I had just like hit like exhaustion, and I just said to Nige, like, look, I'm tapping out of work. Like, I know I committed to doing to like 36 weeks, but now I'm like 32 weeks and I'm so like, I'm done, you know? And so he really honored that. And I just, I just went into deep connection with self, baby, and the Earth Mother, really. I spent a lot of time in nature, a lot of time journaling, a lot of time, just connecting with self and seeing these same wise women, and just making sure I was really like centered and connected to my own knowing. So that was actually just really nice. And I think back now and I think like I was almost led to really pull back, one, so that I could bond more with Maple, but also like that level of like internal like deep knowing, but also my connection to Mother Earth, and just like knowing that there was like this safe holding in like nature, served me afterwards. Like it was like, oh, I was actually being prepared for the after, even though I thought I was preparing for birth, if that makes sense. So it was really nice. But interestingly, like at 40, I was maybe 41 weeks pregnant. I was heavily pregnant, and all of these like infant deaths started like popping up on my Instagram. Like Sally's story popped up through the Road to Wisdom. Is the Road to Wisdom podcast? Like, it must have been like 41 weeks, and then that popped up, and I was like, whoa, what is all this like sleeping baby stuff like coming up on my page? And it just was like boom, boom, boom. And like initially, like those two conversations on the one day, that made me go, oh, there's something here for me. This was like another similar thing of like, why am I seeing this? Like, this is not in my consciousness. And so I remember walking out, I just like had this like intuitive knowing, I'm like, I need to go talk to Nige. And I walked out, Nige and Olive were swimming in the pool, and I was like, hey, I just need to ask you some questions. And he's like, what? I was like, do you want a free birth as much as I do? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, and if our baby was born sleeping, would you blame me? And he was like, no, absolutely not. Like, you know, why would you think that? And I was like, I just need to know, because like this is a possibility and it just keeps popping up into my consciousness, and I feel like we need to have this conversation. And he like looked me in the eyes. He's like, absolutely not. If we have a sleeping baby, I'm never going to blame you, and I want this as much as you do. And I was like, okay. And that's all I had to hear. And then that was done. And I didn't care to like look into it anymore. It was just like, and I really do believe that I was meant to see those things and have that conversation, because perhaps like if I hadn't, there could have been some of that blaming, or there could have been like shame from me. Like I wanted this more than him. And even if it was, the story wasn't true, I just was led to have that conversation. And that was at 41 plus weeks, like, which is wild.
That's so wild.
It's so wild.
And I had similar stuff.
Yeah.
Like I didn't talk about this when I told my birth story, because I didn't know how the fuck to tell that story and like put all the details in. How much time does everyone have? Yeah. But similarly, I remember being really confronted because a woman I did an interview with, like right at 39 weeks, she'd started telling me about all these people that she knew whose babies had died. And I was like, I'm 39 weeks. Like, I'm giving birth soon. Stop talking to me about this. And I really wanted to shut it out. But then someone else kept telling me about the same women. And it was like this crazy thing in my field. And I don't know why. It was so present. And then now I do know why I was more present, because those women were such great resources in the immediacy of the loss.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And then you go, oh, okay, there were signs.
Yeah.
And that literally the night before I had Maple, I had a dream and a date came through. And at the time when I saw the date, I was like, oh, man, I've got to wait till the 22nd of that came through. It was like this date, like typed out. So it was like such a clear vision. And I was like, oh, man, that's when I'm going to go into labor. So I was like, guys, like, you know, and when I went into labor on the 20th, I was like, well, what was that date about? You know, like I even had those thoughts at the moment, because I was like, oh, this is so clear, this message. And like, as the story unfolds, the date that she gave me was the day that the police came and took her. And, you know, we just take these messages based on the consciousness that we have at that certain time. And because I was so pregnant, it's like, oh, 22nd, that's when I'm having my baby, you know, like I've got a few more days to wait. But so interesting. They're always trying to pass these messages to us, and it's just whether we're like receptive.
Totally.
Yeah.
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 So you went into labor on the 20th.
Yeah. So we, just literally just hit out of nowhere. We were going for like a walk in the afternoon at 3:00, and it was just like, boom, like it was on from the very first contraction. And so like just getting to the cul-de-sac at the end of our street, I had 3 contractions and then 3 on the way back to our driveway. And we were going to go for like a longer walk. And I was like, I'm out. I'm out, team. So I went inside, and Nige and Olive went and finished their walk. He got back at 3:30, and I was just like in it, like 1 minute apart from the start. There was no lead in. And I immediately was like, okay, you need to contact Kat and Amanda, because it's the afternoon. We had sort of planned that if it happened overnight, that Nige and I would just manage it. But because of the time and how intense it was, I was like, you need to make the call. And Amanda's mum was visiting and had her car. So she was like going to be Olive's primary support. So Kat came first to be with Olive, and then Amanda came later. And as the story unfolds, you're like, oh, of course, like that, everyone had a huge role to play. And so Amanda, then Kat sort of, once Amanda arrived, came in with Nige and I, and Amanda took Olive until she went to bed, and then it was all 4 of us. And there was really like nothing eventful to really share, other than it was just that like 1 minute apart, boom, boom, boom. And I was just in it. And then the people around me were just doing all the things to like, I really wasn't consciously aware of really what was going on, and just went from, say, bath to shower. And then at one point they all tried to help me to our bedroom, where I eventually gave birth. And that was like across a 2-room sort of space. And we were stopping like to get to there, because it was just that, like, the break between was just not really there, you know. And so that was like 8 hours. And from start to finish. And it was really like, as I said, like kind of uneventful in anything other than me slowly getting Maple out. I found the longest part was like, I worked really hard to get her down that birth canal. Like once that grunting, like once the opening stopped and there was like getting her down, that was the longest part. It felt like, particularly as she was crowding, it was just like centimetre by centimetre. I was like, whoo. And like how amazing our bodies are to just like allow that to happen. And that was pretty amazing. And the girls, like, and Nige, they were just like pumped, like, you're doing it, you know, and because it was a VBAC too. So I also was just like, there's nothing's going to stop me. I'm birthing this baby. So that, as I said, like the crowning part seemed to, like, getting her down and out was like, seemed to be like the longest part. But I don't know exactly like time frames. I was on all 4s on the bed as she was born at 11:39 p.m. And she came out, Kat, like the last part of it was like the easiest part. All of a sudden it's like head and body came all at once. You know, my whole body was like, whoosh, she just like flew out. And so you just like, even in my birth video, the camera gets flown because everyone's like, oh my gosh, like expecting head and then body. But she just was like,
she just slipped straight out.
Yeah, straight out at the end. But the beginning was like, yeah, so slow. And I really felt my body get behind her, like to just get her out really, really quickly at the end. And then I turned myself around and like she was just like on our bed, and I remember just being like, fuck yeah, like I did this, you know. I'm getting emotional now, we're getting to that part. And instantly just like picked her up and like put her into my arms, and I was like, fuck, she is so beautiful. Like she was just so pretty. Like, and yeah, like held her in my arms, and I could see that she was just like eyes closed, like taking a while to come into her body. And Nige and I checked, and Nige and I thought the whole pregnancy that we're having a boy. We were both talking to a little boy. But Olive the whole time was like, Mom, it's a girl. Like even the morning that we had her, she's like, Maple Rose. Like she just like was so adamant it was a girl, and she was so right. And so we looked and we were like, oh my gosh, it's Maple. Like, of course it's Maple. Like Olive was right, you know? And so like we had that moment, and Nige and I were just like in the ecstatic. And then I looked down and I start seeing her like cord going from that blue color into white. And I could tell that she was not like coming to. And so like I wasn't really concerned in those immediate moments, because I was like, she's attached to me, you know, we know all those things. And then I just like, it went from like elated and like just checking her over, and then like, oh no, I actually need help. And the other part of our birth story, which again, like I'll quickly share, it's like a bit of a side tangent, but we met Brett and Ali when we were pregnant with Maple at a winter solstice. I was quite heavily pregnant, or like halfway through my pregnancy actually. And it was like one of those like instant connections. We just started having a conversation, and it was one of those conversations that all of a sudden everyone needs to be around the fire, and we were sat on opposite sides. And I was like, I need to like communicate with those people again. Like there was just like this knowing. And we ended up finding each other on like Instagram like a few weeks later, and I was so excited. I'd shared with like my friend, I was like, I just need to find these people. I don't know how to find them. And then, yeah, they found me, and I was so excited. And they were one of the last people that I spoke to before I let go of the midwife, because one was a student midwife and the other was a paramedic. I was like, I just have this calling, like I don't know why, but I feel like I need to just let go of the midwife. And they were both so supportive. And by the end of this like beach venture with the kids, Brett had offered to be on call if we ever needed it. It just felt like that like final thing of like, yeah, of course, I could just have an Amber on call. Like, why not? And so as little Maple's head, like hair shown, one of the girls called him. And so he was literally just sitting on our front lawn. Wow. He'd like made the trip. He'd finished his shift, an Ambo shift, grabbed what he needed, and like was just sitting there. And like that is honestly like one of the greatest gifts that we could have had. And I feel like, again, that like pull in that moment, I could have ignored it, but it was like a light bulb in me that was like, I need to speak to them again. And then it formed this connection. So yeah, anyways, her cord's starting to, I can see it starting to drain fully, like go completely white. And I was like, call Brett. And he was like, just, yeah, sitting on the lawn. So the girls like ran to the front door and were like, Brett. And he came in, and like, again, he's like probably one of the only people that would have this equipment on him, because both of his daughters had complex issues as babies, like seizures and stuff. So he had the like oxygen, he had everything there. Wow. Yeah. And he just came in, and then straight away, like I just like, obviously she was still attached to my placenta, and he was just on the end of my bed and started working on her. And I can see him like touching the cord, touching her like wrist, like feeling into her. And then he just like straight away starts like putting the oxygen on and starts breathing for little Maple. And to me, like, I just had this moment where I fully dissociated, and I was just like, what the fuck? Like, it just, like, that was like basic. Am I allowed to swear on this?
Sure.
And I just like leaned back, and I was just like sitting there just staring. It just felt like slow motion. And while I was watching her, I'm like, oh my gosh, she's she's not with us. She's not with us. Like her body was like, she never opened her eyes. She just was there, like asleep, like seemingly just asleep, just no movement, just nothing. And so I'm just like watching on, and then I see like Nige helping him. They're like doing CPR to like get her heart rate up. And he said to the girl straight away, call an ambulance. And so they're on the phone to the ambulance, and he's sort of like communicating what's going on. And instantly, like all of this is happening so fast, but in my mind, it's still so slow. Like I don't even know. There's like everything's so slow. But Kat and Amanda just start like singing. And they're like, darling, darling, beautiful, and just trying to call her in. And then I can hear Brett like, come on, Maple, you can do it. You can breathe on your own. Like, you can do this. You just need a little bit of help, but like, you can do this. And I'm watching Nige like keep her with us. And it was like one of those moments that you're just like, fuck, is this happening? And this whole time, like in my mind, I was like, fuck, what have I done? Like, she's not with us. She's not with us. And then, like, again, it might have been like 2 minutes later. Nige is no longer doing compressions, and it's just like the oxygen. And Brett looks up at me and he was like, put your hand on her chest. And I like lean over and I put my hand on her chest, and her heart is just like pumping. And he's like, she's here. She's here. She's just having trouble breathing on her own. And I was just like, oh my gosh. And I will like never forget that feeling, like shooting up my arm of like, oh my God, no, she is here. She's just not fully here. And so her little heart was pumping. And then the neonatal team came running in, and they pick Maple up. They disconnect us from each other, and they take her into the kitchen, and so that they had more space to work on her. Nige went with her. He like looked at me and I was like, go with her. And so he carried her in and like put her down in there. And so I missed a lot of what was going on out there. But Brett came in and he looked me in the eyes. He's like, Ash, they're the best of the best. Like, you can't get better than them. She's like, if my children needed someone, I would want them. And so I was like, okay. And then, like, during that time, like, then Ambos are coming in asking me questions. They're all super respectful. I had, like, this really, like, random Ambo working with me, and it, like, kind of, like, broke up. Like, I listened to your story, how you kind of felt like you're in, like, a bit of an alternate reality where, like, things are kind of funny. And, like, you know, you had, like, his torch in his mouth trying to, like, find a vein and kept missing the vein. I'm like, why do I have to crap Ambo? You know, like, but, like, it was kind of, like, funny at the time. And, like, Kat had actually got behind me and she was just like holding me like steady, like just stay with us. And when she was singing, like I was trying to get words out of my mouth, like everybody else seemed to be able to do and act and say and sing and call her in, and I was frozen, like literally frozen. I was just like, the fuck, like I don't even know what to do right now. So she'd sort of anchored in behind me in the bed and was just like, yeah, holding me. And just like telling me like, you know, she needs to hear your voice. Like, you know, during that time, she's like, she just needs to hear you. She needs to hear her mama, like, you know, and just put your hand on her. Like, she was just so beautiful, like just keeping me in the moment, because she knew if I went too far out, like she didn't know how to pull me back. So yeah, I had this Ambo and he like was sort of, yeah, doing his thing with me. And before long, they're like, she's stable, like her heart's still going, we're going to get her to the hospital, we're all going to move out, you're going to go in this ambulance, you're going to like, we're going to take her. And I was like, okay. And so they wheeled us out, they got us in the ambulance, and I still had the same paramedic with me, and I was like, oh, like initially I was like, why do I have to sit back with him, you know? But he was actually great. He just like, he was so good at like zooming in on what I was interested in. He was like talking to me about child development and like these like shows that he's watched on Netflix, and just like very like just keeping me with it. And I just said to him, I was like, is my baby going to be okay? And he was like, yeah, like how did you have that guy with like the oxygen stuff? Like where did you get him? Like, you know, he was like, you've done everything that you could have possibly done, and her heart beats strong. He was like, so that you've got he reiterated, he's like, the neonatal team is like the best on the coast, like that Ambo, she's like the top of the top, like you can't get better. And he's like, she's in good hands. So I was just like fully in trust, and I could hear the radio, like infant heartbeat 138, infant heartbeat 138. They're like checking in as they were driving her, and they're like, she's going as fast as she possibly can. So I was just like, okay. And then I just started imagining NICU and that she would have to be on machines. And I was just like preparing myself for like not what we expected, but we're going to get there and that's going to be my reality kind of thing. And then we arrive at the hospital and she arrives just before me, and I hear over the thing like, infant arrived, heartbeat 138. And I was like, fuck yeah, like we're here. Like I was just like, I've got to hear, they're just going to do their job. Like she's with us, you know? And as I'm getting wheeled out of the ambulance, I'm thanking every single person. Like, thank you so much for everything you've done. I'm so grateful. Like, you know, I was just in that space of full hopelessness, hopefulness and belief that we're here. Like, thanks guys. Like, you did your job and now we're good. Then they wheel me in and they put us like opposite sides of the room, and then they pull my curtain and they pull her curtain. And my understanding from the midwives was almost that they had been told that I was in a really bad way as well. But then when they saw me coming in, like thanking everyone, she's like, oh, she's fine. Anyway, so they did some checks and I hadn't birthed the placenta yet. And they offered to put some Pictocin, Syntocin into my arm. And I was like, I really thought I was going to have a boy. Like, could you just do a scan in case there's twins? Like I still had this, like, there's a boy, like wow. There's another child. And so they grabbed it and she had a look and and so I was like, oh, I want to make sure that, like I just need to make sure, please don't put that in until you've like checked, which is so wild. And then they like did the ultrasound and like, oh no, like there's no other baby in there, but your placenta's just sitting there. I just actually hadn't stood up yet. They went from bed into things. So they just pulled it out. And so once they checked me over, they then opened her curtains. I could see them over there. I could see the machines all going. And then the head midwife looked at me and she said, I'm probably going to get in trouble for this, but I don't care. And she just like gets behind and just wheels me over to where Maple was. And straight away the room of like 30 people like, like, no. And she's like, yeah, this is her child and she needs to witness this. And this woman, like throughout the time, it's like, she is someone that can see the divide and she can see that we actually need to do more for women. Like I really got that from her. And she's like, you chose not to be here because you don't feel like we'd actually be supportive of you. So I'm going to now prove to you in this moment that I'm going to do everything for you to be near your baby, you know? And I really felt that from her. And I was so grateful. So she like pushes me in and I can see Maple and instantly she pushes me up against her and I just like grab her hand and I'm like, hey baby. And I was just like, oh my gosh, you're so beautiful. And like, you know, she's got all the things happening, but like she's still, her heart's beating, you know? And then I see, they're like, oh, we just need to do like an x-ray, and they x-rayed her chest. And then I could see the x-ray up on the screen, like next to us. And they were like, it's clear. And so I was like, oh, great. Like, it's clear. Like, there's nothing there like that they can see, like whatever. And so then it was like, they're just like still there. And then I'm still not really knowing what's happening. I'm just like holding onto her hand. And then not long after, the head baby doctor comes over and she was just like, hey, like, we don't believe Maple's like going to make it. And I was like, what? She's like, based on like the fact that it's been 3.5 hours and she hasn't been able to take an independent breath and like her blood's like, yeah, we don't believe she's going to be able to make it. And I was just like, what do you mean? To this day, I'm still like, that moment of being told that news is like never going to be like, what do you mean? Like, surely there's something that you can do to like keep her here. And the head midwife again was like, you need to be clear with her. Like don't make it there any ambiguity or like she's making a choice here. Like, what is the likelihood? And she's like, I really don't believe Maple's going to survive. And I like scanned the room. The head midwife then like scanned the room and she was like, okay, does anybody else in here, and it's like, this room's packed, like anybody else in here have any other ideas, anything that we haven't tried that might be able to like, that we could try that could keep Maple here? And I'm just like scanning, like there's so many people in that room. I'm just looking at every single person in the eye. And most people just like put their head down, like didn't even want to look at me. And I was just like, please, someone put your freaking hand up. There's got to be something. And no one put their hand up. And I've like since learned that like, yeah, heart, like they can, you know, jolt you, but you either breathe or you don't breathe. Like there's nothing that can force someone to breathe. And so then like, yeah, after scanning the room, I was like, okay then, well, what, what do we do? And like, well, we feel like the best thing to do is like for you to have this time and we'll take her off the machines and then you can hold her until her heart stops beating. Like, I look back on video footage of this and, like, because Kat was there, Nige was there, like, so Kat straight away started, like, you know, sobbing, but, like, trying to capture. And I look back on that footage and you can see, like, the sheer, like, terror, disbelief, like, no. Like, I'm unwilling to accept this. But you have to accept it. Like, all of a sudden, the machines are off and she's on your chest and you're trying to process, like, my baby's dying. What the fuck? But then this is my only opportunity to be with my child alive, you know? So we all just started, like, singing. We started singing Darling and, like, the, midwife cleared the room, and so like it just seemed like there was no one else in the world other than Kat, Nige and I and Maple. And we just sang and sang and sang and cried. And then a little while later, the head midwife came back in and she was like, it's 2:22, I think it was 2:22. That's like divine timing. Let's check her heartbeat. And the baby doctor came back in, checked her heartbeat, and she was like, whoa, like, no, she's still going strong. Like, and I was like, how's that even possible? How can you just beat your heart without, like, breath or oxygen? It was like, still, like, blows my brain. And so they're like, okay, well, based on, like, how much she'd lost in the time from when they took her off to then, they felt like she had quite a bit to go. So, like, let's get you out of here and get you to the birth suite so that you can actually be, like, somewhere a bit nicer. And so we agreed. And as they opened the curtains, there was just, like, all of the people that had been in that room were just standing out there, like, most crying. And they all just lined the walls and we got pushed past them through and we just kept the song on repeat and we're just singing and like, exited that space. And, it's like, I can see it like still clear as day, you know, like it's so surreal, but it was just like, fuck, my baby, like she's dying and she's in my arms, you know, and like just having that like out of body experience, but then like be here, like this is your only opportunity kind of thing. So yeah, I just remember that like that feeling of like, the fuck, and like wanting to go to the head, but then being like, no, be here. So yeah, we got wheeled out and up to the birth suite and we just held her until her heart stopped beating. Yeah, and then my immediate thoughts went to Olive. And just like, she needs to get here, she needs to get here. So back at the house was Amanda, and Olive was asleep. Luckily, she wanted to witness her sister being born, but then when it actually came to the end part and Amanda tried to wake her, she wouldn't rouse. And so she had her in her arms watching it unfold, but Olive did not witness anything. And I even think that was like meant to be, because she went to bed so excited. She knew I was in labour, but then couldn't be woken. So yeah, Amanda was like this earth angel who heard the news, then got my child out of bed and sat in that excitement of Olive being a big sister, like explaining we have to go to the hospital because mummy and daddy and your baby brother or sister had to go there, so we're going to go to the hospital now. And Olive, this is like 3 o'clock in the morning, and Olive's just like pinging, like playing games and all the things, just, and Amanda just somehow held that for her and just kept that level of like excitement for her, knowing what she was going to walk into. And then I wasn't privy to the conversation between Nige and Olive, but he said like, this is the worst moment of his entire life. He explains it like he tried to explain, well, he did explain to Olive what that Maple wasn't with us. Like, we had a baby sister, but she didn't survive. And Olive just put her hand over his mouth and said, stop talking, Dad, stop talking. And just, you know, was so wanting to be a big sister, you know. But then she walked into that room. Must have been like, I don't know, maybe like 4:30 in the morning or 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm not sure in timing, but she just stepped into that role. She held her sister, she bopped her nose, she played with her toes. She was the only one that was like, you know, would open her eyes, you know, the things that we don't do, because as adults, like, you just, I don't know, we kids are just so like playful in that way.
Close the eye.
Yeah, you know. And I'm so grateful for that, because I never saw her with her eyes open. And then Olive would just like pop the eyelids open and have a good look. And so like, yeah, that was just like the beginning of the new reality. Yeah.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
I know. What the hell? Oh.
I just don't even know what to say. Whenever someone tells me the story, I'm like, saying anything after just feels so fucking stupid, because you're like, yeah, I mean, I'm in it and I still don't even know what to say, you know?
Totally. And there is nothing really to say. It's just like, that shit. Honestly. Yeah, it's just, I can see in your like, your whole being, like, you could feel that pain.
Yeah. I can't.
Yeah.
I know those moments of dissociation, like, and shock when you're just looking at your child going, it's not real. Like, this is not, it can't be.
No, it's not happening.
Yeah.
And then like, yeah, like you, I remember like hearing your story, and you're like, you know, like waving to your neighbours or thumbs up to you know, whatever it is. It's like, that was me, like getting out of the ambulance. I was just like, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Oh, you're so great.
Yeah, you know, and I was just deluded into thinking that like, yeah, we're here. Like, we're going to have a live baby at the end of this. Like, I don't know what it's going to look like in here, but we're doing it. Like, I'm having, like, my baby. I've got her here alive, and now they're going to do their job. Like, that was literally my thought processes. Is like, I've done all I can. Now you're going to do what you can, and you're going to, like,
just do what you do, you know. There was no part of me that was like, they're not going to be able to get her to breathe. I just assumed there was some way you do that, which, you know, in hindsight doesn't make sense, but in the moment it did. So yeah, shortly after, Heartfelt arrived and we had family photos, and that was just like, I was just like, not okay. Like, I look back on those photos and there's not a single one that I'm just not losing my shit, because Olive didn't want to let go of Maple. Like, she was just like, no, I'm I own this kid, this is my dolly kind of thing. But I feel like that's what that moment was supposed to be too. I look back on those photos, I'm like, oh, this is like the Olive and Maple photo shoot, because she didn't want to give her up, and I was just like not coping with like family photos that
would be the only family photos.
And that it's just not what I wanted, you know. It's not what I imagined. So yeah, Olive was just like staunch on that. No one else was holding it. But that was really special for her, I think, like just having that time. And then out goes Heartfelt and in comes the doctors, and you just felt like the energy shift. Like the lady from Heartfelt, when I was bawling and I was like, I'm so sorry, like I just can't even try and pull it together, I'm so sorry. And she literally just grabbed my hand and she's like, I am you. Like, I am you. And it was just that look of a mother that's like, I know this pain. Like, don't you ever apologize. You know, like that kind of vibes. And that even like softened me. I'm like, oh yeah, I can be however I want. Like, she gets it, you know? And then, yeah, like they exit, or she exits, and then in walks the doctors, and the energy just like shifts. And I'm like, well, what is going on? And that's when we're told that the police are coming, that it's a coroner's case, that, yeah, like that conversation, like still, I'm just like, I'm never going to understand how people can be so inhumane in like situations like this. Like, I'm hearing stories from women all the time, and it's just, this is the part that shocks me the most, is like just no compassion, like no meeting someone with love in a place that's like their most vulnerable moment, painful moment of their entire lives. And so she continues to let us know about the autopsy process and what they will do to Maple. And I was just like, no, I'm taking her home. I'm having a home vigil. She's like, you've got no choice. This is a judiciary process. Babies should, like, birth should not end in death, and we need to protect other children from this happening. And I remember just having this like internal rage. Well, fucking clearly it does, because I did everything I could. I got her here and it still ended in death. You know, like, how can it not end in death sometimes? You know, like just the things she was just saying, like, it was just like, what are you talking about? And it felt like very much like we need to protect children from this, you know? And Nige was really angry. Like, I had to like kick his foot and be like, babe, calm down, because he was just like, this is just so sad that the world is like this. Like, and she's like, well, I'll go, because I'm like, how long do we have? She's like, I'll go make some phone calls, but it'll be this afternoon. Like, they'll be here soon. You might have a couple of hours. And it was very much like, there's nothing you can do about this. Like, this is what's happening. They're coming. And I was just like literally like howling, like that, like overwhelmed, like with this baby in my arms, just like, no, no, no. And the response was just like cold, you know, just like, well, that's what's happening.
Can I ask, I know you weren't very clear on like the timeline and how much time had gone by, but between when Maple took her last breath and Heartfelt leaving to police coming in and telling you that they were going to do the autopsy, how long do you think that was?
So it was just before 3 a.m. that she passed, and then heartfelt were booked for 10 a.m. And so they would have been in at 11 a.m. like as heartfelt left. It was basically like they were waiting outside for heartfelt to leave and walked in.
Yeah.
So I don't know how long they'd been waiting, whether they'd been waiting more, but yeah, it was like basically because it was 3 a.m. it then like got alerted to heartfelt, and then the volunteers picks it up.
Yeah.
And they could get there at 10. So, yeah.
Yeah. So like 8 hours later, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess. Yeah. Yeah. And then, yeah, I just was just like, I was just looking at Nigel like, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do? And like, I really don't know, because people say this to me all the time. They ask me like, how did you just like do the things you did in that moment? And I honestly just don't know. I just was like, how do I honor my little baby who I fucking love so much, like in this such short time frame? Like, what do I do? Like, I wanted the whole world to know about her. It's so funny because like postpartum with Oliver, like no one's allowed in our house for 6 weeks. We're doing them 40 days close, and then like you have a deceased baby. It's like, I want the whole world to know you. Like, it's so weird, like the difference in that. And so I was just like, what do we do? What do we do? So the midwife came in, and I was like, can I do a vigil here? Like, am I allowed to bring people? And she's like, well, we can move you over to the maternity ward and like, so out of the birth suite and over there. And then like, yeah, you could have visitors like in the hours or whatever. So I was like, okay. So they moved us over, and then I messaged my good friend Julia and said, could you come take photos? Because I knew that the photos that Heartfelt had taken, although beautiful, I was like, my child didn't let Nige and I. Like, we just didn't have like the photos that I knew that I desperately wanted. And she takes film, and I knew it was the most I was going to receive, like her essence and light through film, which is different to digital. And so contacted her first, and then we contacted 5 couples of our friends, and we were like, can you guys get here as soon as possible? Which they did. They all just dropped everything, and everyone was there within the hour. And that's where we did a vigil in like the hospital, and we had like flowers, and we just sang Darling, we sang Please Prepare Me. Nige and I just sat on the bed with her, and each person came and like honoured her and like placed flowers on her. And it was just like the heartbreak in that room. Like, what I was feeling, I was seeing on every single person's face, and it was like that realization of like, far out, like everyone was preparing for this little baby to be in our community. Like, it's our loss, but it's everyone's loss, you know? And then Olive had a chance where she passed Maple around to all her little under 5-year-old friends. And they all had like a moment with her, and I feel like that was really important for her as well. And just prior to everyone arriving, the social worker had come in, and I just like lost it. I'm like, I cannot deal. Like, what can we do? We need more time, you know? And she was like, because she passed in the hospital, I'm going to try and do everything I can. Like, we know that there's no foul play, which, by the way, like should be the case for every mother. Like, so many mamas that I speak to, like me, like arrive at the hospital, their placenta's still inside them. Can we just like treat those women as like innocent until proven guilty? Can we just look as a detective at the evidence, and perhaps that baby died during the process of birth and no one has tried to harm that child? Do you know, like, yeah. It makes me so angry. But yeah, so this was the situation, and she said, I'm going to try and advocate for you. And then she said, but all I'm going to say is like, don't rush your vigil with your friends. Like, the police can wait. And I was like, okay, thank you. So we were just doing our thing. And it was like in that moment after the conversation with her, I had this split moment of like, do we savor this moment as a family because the police may be coming in 1 to 2 hours, or do we call everyone in and honor her? And we made the call to call everyone in. And then, yeah, as soon as everyone was like preparing to leave, and everyone was so angry. They were like, I'll run with her. Like, there was a lot of that happening. Like, no, they like can't. Like, surely they can't do this. And And then just as everyone was about to depart, the social worker stepped in. She goes, I don't want to interrupt, but they've granted you the night. And the whole place just like erupted. We were just so pumped. We're like, yes.
It is crazy to me that you have to be granted the night with your own child.
Right. It was a gift. It was a gift from...
allow that. We were never allowed that. Like, we weren't even, our friends were at the hospital and they weren't even allowed to come into the room to meet Dash.
So bad.
And they were just like, no, it's not an option. And I was like, okay, so what do we do? And they were like, that's it. That's all you do. You're going to go see him. He's going to get taken at 5. That's it. That was the only option. They wouldn't let us go any other direction.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And the fact that they like calling it a gift or granting it to you is wild. It is so disrespectful to the process of a mother bonding with her child, especially after they've passed, and that's it. You don't get to see them again until after they do an autopsy.
Yeah, and the trauma stack is just insane. Yeah. Like, it's not just like the unexpected death of a child. It's, oh, now we're going to forcibly remove that child from you. And now detectives are going to come and interview you. Yeah. And the layers of that, and like the amount of fight or flight stress response that you're in, that is just like forced upon you in like the most, like, if you ask anyone what is like the worst thing that could possibly happen to you, anyone who's a parent would have losing their child as like one of the top things on their list. Mm-hmm. And then we're in these situations where we lose our children. We're actually loving parents. We've done everything we possibly can to try and like keep that child with us. We call authorities because we think they're going to help us because we are loving parents. And then the calling of the authorities is when, like, it's hands off. You're a danger to your child. You're a danger, and we're actually going to protect your child from you. And the amount of times I heard, you're holding the evidence, being Maple's body, I was like, this is not evidence. It's actually my baby. Like, even to this day, I'm like, that is so disrespectful. Like, oh, the reason why is because you're holding the evidence and you can tamper with that evidence. And I'm like, this is actually like my child who has just died in the process of birth, like shortly after birth. And I'm not seeing her as evidence. I'm seeing her as like my baby, you know? And I think that's where the disconnect is so like not okay. And I can't imagine any animal in the animal kingdom allowing someone near their like they're young. Like nothing would like allow something to strip them from their young. Like we go into this like we are animals at heart, but like we just think we're intellectual animals who actually need to find out the cause of death. But it's just so insane. It's like, no, like we need to be showing respect for the trauma stack. And even now I'm still untangling, less so the loss of my baby, which should be the worst part of my story. I'm untangling the treatment, the loss of human rights, the loss of being able to protect, like, because it honestly feels like someone cutting into your baby, you can't protect them. Like, you can't stop it. You can't stop some random dude when your baby's like a few hours old being like taking your child away, who doesn't know them, who doesn't love them. Like, who's not going to treat them with that same level of respect that you would. That to me is like, ooh, I'm never going to stop advocating that needs to change. Yeah.
So after that, obviously, I know you then got to spend a night with Maple, which is amazing.
Yeah.
Before she got taken the next day. And what was that night like for you?
Oh, this is when I feel for like every single mother who has their baby stripped like so soon after, because that time was never going to feel like enough time. Like, I stayed awake all night. Like, I just wasn't willing to like sleep for a moment because I knew that the time was so fleeting. We just had cups of tea and ate cookies, and I just tried to like take in every single aspect of her like little being, which, as you know, like it just fades over time. Like, even as present as I've been with Olive, I still like need to look at photos to remember her as that little tiny being that she once was. And yeah, it was hard. It was like, again, that jumping between like already yearning for her and trying to be present. It was just like this like twofold the whole night, just trying to jump between the two. Like you're in such like a fight or flight state, a grief, a heartbreak state, and you're just trying to be like, don't be there, be here, don't be there, be here. Like this is the last opportunity to be here. So I treasure that night so much. I treasure the words that I wrote in my journal that night. I treasure that I was able to express all the gifts I could already see that she was granting us. And like thank her and like, but yeah, as the morning arose, like started to come to an end, it was like 4 o'clock in the morning. Again, I believe this is Maple. Like I just got this intuitive hit of like, we're going to be rushed in the morning. We're going to be rushed in the morning. And I really wanted to bath Maple because they had told me that any clothes that she had on her wouldn't come back from the coroner, anything we sent with her. And I now really wanted to keep her first clothes. And so I ended up waking Nige at like 4 in the morning. The head midwife from emergency was back on, but she was in the birth suite until 7 a.m. She'd like popped her head in at like 10 p.m. that night. I was like, I'll be here till 7. Like when Nige wakes up, call me back. So I woke Nige at 4 a.m. and I was like, hey, I just have this like feeling that we're going to get rushed in the morning. And like, he's just used to trusting my like knowing now that he was like, okay. So he got up and we called the head midwife over and she came in. I'm like, I just really want to bath Maple before she goes like with the police. And she was like, okay, have they told you can't because of the autopsy process? I'm like, no. And she's like, all right, let's do it. So she was just like, she just closed the door and like filmed it and took photos and we had this like thing. And it was just like, because when they pass, like they go through these stages of like almost like tightening up and you can't open their hands and all the things. But because she went into the warm bath, she became like really warm and floppy and like we were bathing her like live and that she was just like asleep. And like I look back on those videos and I just think Nige and I was just like so tender because we knew that like we couldn't be rough because she'd been deceased for quite some time and we hadn't used the cold bed at all because we refused to put her down. So we were just like tenderly caring to her and just like I look back on the videos and it's just like so much like talking to her so she's actually with us. And it felt like there were times where she was very much like in her body, like you could feel her soul. And so yeah, we just bathed her and then dressed her. And shortly after we received a phone call from Amanda saying that Olive was really sick and she'd been sick like all night and the next day. And Nige made the call to go. Well, we made the call together, but he went to pick her up, which was like a 50-minute drive. And I stayed with Maple. And then, as I had already been given the intuitive hit on, the social worker came in and she was like, the police are going to be here in half an hour. And I was like, you can't because like Nige and Olive aren't here and they need a chance to say goodbye to her. And they're like, but you had the night, so they're not going to be lenient on this. I'm like, this is our family. Like, it's just like the timeline. No. And I'm like, no, honestly, like I need them to be here. So I called Nige and he's like, I'm 50 minutes away. I was like, you're going to have to get them to wait. Like, can we just have an extra half an hour so that they get like a short period of time? She's like, I don't know that they're going to be lenient, but I'll try. And so then I'm just sitting there like holding her, like knowing I've got half an hour, that my family's not there to say goodbye, and just like going back into that response of like, it's not enough time. I'm not ready. I don't want to just, And I think this is like something like this week I had a woman call me who's lost her baby after birth and had her baby taken like immediately. And I just think like we need change in this space. Like women need to make that call because you do. Because all of us, every single woman that I've spoken to, when they see their child 2 weeks, 3 weeks later in their like funeral director's home or whatever, all say like, there's like this disconnect in that moment of like, my baby's not there anymore. My baby's soul, that is their body, that is their vessel, but that's not my baby. And so we're all going to get to the point where we're like, oh, this is my baby's vessel. That's not my baby. But that opportunity gets stripped from us, and then the little child that we pass over is like this perfectly pink, looks like a alive baby but just asleep. And I think that's like, it's such a big part of like the processing of all of this, of like just having that taken before we've had the opportunity to be like, okay, yeah, I'm ready. And like talking to Hayley at Paperbuck, she says that all happens within 3 days, where like gravity starts to take over and they don't look like them anymore. And no one wants to just hold their child forever, but we need that opportunity to like, okay, I can see you, I can see that you've left your body, and now I'm willing to pass you over. And I think every single woman would get to that point with time. Totally. I did not feel like that morning. I was like, no. Anyways, like Nige, during that like half an hour period, another 2 doctors come in. They start, oh, we hear that you're upset about the autopsy process. Can we talk to you about it? And I was just like, again, I was just sitting there in a state, because I knew I had half an hour left, and you want to talk to me about the autopsy process? Like,
Yeah, there's no understanding of the timeline.
Yeah.
Like, these are my most precious moments, and you're going to come in here and talk to me about this shit right now. You're going to come and get a statement about, no, you're out of your goddamn mind if you think that this is the appropriate time to be doing this shit.
Right.
Because it's not.
And then also this woman sees me in my state and proceeds to tell me that I'm going to need professional help. And in that moment, it was so interesting, because I literally had this moment of like wanting to scream at her, like, you think? Like, you're taking my baby, like my baby's died, and now you're taking, like, she's being taken when I don't want her to be taken, like, and being like cut open. Of course I'm going to need professional help. But then like this very quick part in my mind that was like, just nod and get her out of here, Ash. Like, just nod. And even just that, like, what I would wanted to say versus like, that's going to take longer, and I just want you to get out of the room as fast as I possibly can so I can actually sit and be with my child. So I actually had this very quick like conversation in my head and just went, yeah, I will. Okay, you can go now. Like, get out. So like, yeah. And so then the social worker popped her head in. She's like, they've given you till 10 o'clock. I call Night. She's like, 9:48. He's going to arrive. He's like, I'll drive fast. And I'm like, are they going to get a park in the hospital? Like, are they going to be able to get up here fast enough? Like, I'm just like, my head's like going da-da-da. Anyways, they walk into the room at 9:48. He was onto it. And Olive instantly sees me holding Maple, and she just starts vomiting. And so I just pick her up and I pass Maple to Nige, and then just go and like pop her in the shower. I'm trying to help her, because she, like, what we soon found out was like the emotion, the overwhelm was like, she could not handle it. We had to actually, you know how people like, oh, you know, have them a part of it. There was like a point where it was actually too much for Olive to be a part of it. Like, seeing Nige and I in that distressed state was like, she'd never seen us like that before. She didn't know what to deal with. And plus her little sister that she's been just like waiting for is like dead. So she was just like, this is not okay. So she starts vomiting. I chuck her in the shower, and I'm trying to calm her down. I'm like, it's okay, baby, like, you know. And then Nige like goes, we've just been given a 2-minute warning. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? So then I'm like wrapping her up in a like Queensland government towel, getting her on my hip, trying to go out and be like, you need to say goodbye to Maple now, baby. She's going to go to Brisbane. You might not see her again. And after seeing her the day before, like, just so in that moment, not wanting to let her go, having her photos, you know, passing around to her friends, to then watch my dissociated child who had to spend the night away from us, like, not able to process that moment. And then we're singing together, and we're trying to, like, in this rushed state, like, okay, we'll sing. And we had 2 teddies, one for Olive, one for Maple. I knew that teddy was, who knew where it was going, you know, like I knew Like, we're just like, okay, this is like our little rituals. Olive, you're going to keep this George. This George is going with Maple. Wrap her up, sing the song, pass her off, and watch her leave. And then we're just like left as this like broken family. It was just been like so like rushed. And my Olive was like out of body and not okay for the entire period until we reunited with Maple. It's like kids, she's 3 years old. She regretted that moment. Like she couldn't undo saying goodbye to her sister. And when she finally got to the point like, Mum, I want to say goodbye to Maple, I couldn't help facilitate that to happen because she was in a coroner's office. So we just witnessed our child, like right before our eyes, just lose herself for weeks. Couldn't cope, screaming, hurting her friends, like just completely out of body. She like, and that's another part of all of this is like the family's timeline, the family's need to process what's happening, like that without Hayley, again, facilitating what she did, I still believe Olive will have stuff to unpack from this time because she's so little. But I can't even imagine if she never got the opportunity to reunite with her sister, what that would have felt for her for the rest of her life, because that was just such a brutal moment of not being ready, feeling sick, like dissociated, needing to come back to be with the family unit to say goodbye, and she never got that chance. And yeah, that pains me a lot. Sorry. Thanks, darling.
Yeah, it's so big. I obviously only have to think about within our internal family, like what me and Tom are going through. And I know I've said this to you before, but helping a 3-year-old understand like death and loss of their sibling is a whole other layer to it that I don't have an experience with. And I think you're carrying the weight and just the journey of it all with her really well, as hard as it is.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know, like I have a lot of people message me through Maple's page, like from Olive's perspective, like as children they lost siblings and how it was dealt with, and they're always thanking me, but like I always respond to these women that share these stories to me like, your parents would have just done the best they could at the time. Like, it is so gnarly. Like, I'm literally making it up as we go, like just trying to facilitate it. But what I'm hearing most, and maybe this will be helpful to people listening, is like the women sharing with me that it was just shut off from them. Like they went to the funeral and then it was never spoken about, and there was all these emotions flying around in the family from parents and them, and like anger and frustration and sadness, but it was never spoke under the umbrella of like, this is grief, this is a symptom of trauma, this is a symptom of like, and we actually need to talk about it as a family. And Olive talks about Maple daily. Like she took a little dragonfly from here because she's going to see some friends and she wants to show Maple. Like it's something that's like so alive in our family. And I think that's what I'm hearing as feedback is like, commonly it's kind of just shut off from the children. And but Nigel and I have just done that naturally. There was nothing like kind of that, yeah, it just felt like the right thing to do for us. Yeah. And I think everyone's just trying to do the best they can with like really crappy situations, you know?
Yeah, that's true. And I think within like advocating for a better understanding of what bereaved parents are going through, especially in the immediacy of postpartum, but also for, you know, infant loss that doesn't happen right after birth. There's so many ways that a child can pass. And families, I'm sure, are still stripped of those rights and not getting to say goodbye in the right way.
Yeah.
And so it's like, how can we, and why the fuck is it our responsibility, but how can we advocate so that this doesn't keep happening to the parents that go through this?
Yeah, exactly. It's happening to the SID mamas as well. Like they're waking up in the middle of the night. They want to do something. They call authorities. And the moment that those authorities are called, it's like that's a crime scene and everyone who's there is now a witness. And I think like that's such like it's not just happening in birth. It's any unexpected childhood death, like unexpected, not knowing the cause. It's happening in all different scenarios. And that's something that's really been brought to my attention through sharing Maple's story, is like, it's not just birth. It's so much bigger than that. And it's so wrong.
It's hugely wrong. I mean, it's so true what you're saying about the stacking of trauma one on top of the other, like everything. I have so many things that I regret. And I read your post about, and what you've just said right now is we're only doing the best with what we have, and we're all doing the best that we can. And none of the regrets are things that like I chose. They're all things that other people chose on behalf of me and said, this is your only option.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm like, why was that my only option? Because now I have to undo all of the terrible mistakes that other people made for me in the worst moment of my life.
Absolutely. And that like level of helplessness and that level of like, that was my child who I had zero rights over, that I would have literally done anything for, but I had no choice in the matter. And I think it's so painful. And I think it's such like a big part of this conversation is that when someone loses a child unexpectedly, it's to support that family is so much more than going, oh, you lost your child. It's all of this other stuff that's stacked on top that, we're trying to unpack for like weeks, months, like years later of like, oh my gosh, like all of these things that were just like stripped of me, the powerlessness, the helplessness, the like feeling like I'm a criminal, that I'm potentially to blame for my child's death, like the shame, the guilt, the all of these things. That's on top of like, oh yeah, we don't have our baby anymore, which should be the most painful part. But it really, like in most people that I talk to, like even this woman who called me just like randomly the other day, it's not the part about losing the baby. It's the part when all the authorities flood the room and take a child from her that she's like, you can feel the fear, the like overwhelm, the like, it's so distressing. And I think when we're in like immediacy of postpartum, there's so much that we're trying to like unpack. It's so much more than just losing our child. And I think that's really misunderstood.
There's like, I don't know why this is what's coming up for me, but from my understanding that when someone becomes a surrogate, for instance, like they have to undergo rigorous like mental evaluation before they can become a surrogate to make sure that they can handle postpartum once the baby is born and the baby goes to whoever the mother is that they were a surrogate for. And it's like, if you have to go under that mental evaluation ahead of, conceiving that child, becoming that surrogate, and knowing that that baby is going to be taken off of you, you have a lot of preparation. If your child very suddenly passes and then it's just stripped away from you, it's the equivalent to feeling like your child's been just kidnapped, but like is maybe still alive, or like what's happened, I don't really understand. These people just like took my baby, and your body doesn't actually have any time to process it. Your mental space has no time to process it. There's this whole imbalance that's essentially going on where your hormones are preparing to literally breastfeed and wake in the middle of the night and take care of a tiny little baby, and you have no preparation for it whatsoever. And that's just there. Sorry, that's the only option.
Yeah, it's wrong. Like I don't think, well, I'd like to think that there wouldn't be someone that would hear the stories of the women from Sana Mama and be like, oh, they deserve that. Like, oh yeah, of course you should have your baby stripped of you. Like, it doesn't make sense. And like, I don't think anyone with like in their humanity, like in coming from a place of love, could ever see that this is okay. And like, I've had dreams, and like, I'd like to create this one day, but I've literally had these dreams of like all of us women, like one after the other. My name's Ash. I birthed my baby. My baby was taken from me. And I'm not a criminal. Just one after the other. Like, because none of us are actually being locked up in jail because we calmed our children. Our children, like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just like, can we just get real about this? Because I get that there's like this percentage of people that do harm by children and actually do try to hurt them. But I would love to see the percentage of how many women are going through this And how many of those women they're determining like actual criminals, because I really don't think it's high. And I feel like we could undo so much pain, so much trauma, so much heartache, and actually allow people to grieve like positively if we change some of these like barbaric ways of being, honestly.
Yeah, because the laws aren't in place for people like you and I. They are specifically in place for people that do foul play, but there's no, I don't even know what the word is right now, but there's no leniency to other situations. It's just like one size fits all.
Yeah.
So basically, in the immediacy, we get lumped in with child murderers.
Yeah.
Which is so violent to feel as a mother who's just experienced that. For a detective to be like, sorry, we're doing everything that we can to protect the child from you. It's like, for me, I didn't do anything. Like, I actually didn't. I did everything with love.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like even just like in those spaces, this woman that I was speaking to this week had like one of the midwives who was present actually send her an email later, like expressing like love and like humanity and all those things. And yet in the moment when all of this stuff was unfolding in that hospital system for this woman, that midwife was nowhere to be seen, no one, not advocating. And I think this is like a big thing, like all of these authorities are doing their job, but we're lacking humanity. It's like, if you can see a woman hasn't even birthed her placenta yet and like she's got blood all over her body because she's literally just birthed this baby, like, can we just like all just take a breath, not hold a door and like guard it as though she's like gonna like, and like what else can you do to that child? Like they're already gone in like these cases where they're like protecting, like don't take anything off their faces. This is this woman's experience as well. And you just haven't, there's no respect for you as the loving mother that you are. And I think that is just so wrong. Yeah. Like it's so wrong. It's never going to be okay.
No, it won't.
Yeah.
So I know you wrote letters to, or did you send them?
Yeah. No, I haven't sent them yet. So we've written letters to, I actually wanted to wait until our coroner's inquest was finished before I send the letter to them. And then one to the hospital.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like I don't know like whether anything will happen with either of those things, but for my own process, I needed to feel like I'd spoken out what it was to be in that position. And like in my letter to the hospital, there's like all these earth angels, there's midwives that came and sat with me and cried with me, and you know, the head midwife who pushed me across the room, and like, you know, you can see from my letter that I'm not just like this like off it because my child passed away and I'm just like angry at everybody. You can feel it. It's like these people were in their humanity and showed love. I was in the same circumstance the entire time I was at the hospital. My baby died. It was awful. I was beside myself, but some people met me in their humanity and then others were just brutal. And it's like, maybe you need to like get some training from the people who actually can understand how to be in their humanity, because same circumstance, very different like trauma response in my body. And I don't think it's that hard to, no one's blaming you for the position that we're in. No one's saying that like you can make it better or change the outcome, but like the way that you sit down next to a woman or enter a room of a woman who's just lost her baby, there's two very different ways to do that and have two very different feelings within a woman's body afterwards. And I really don't think it's that hard to be trauma informed and actually respond in a loving way instead of whatever. I don't even know what the opposite of it is. And yeah, earth angel and like something else.
Dirt gremlin. I don't know.
I know I wrote that in my letter. I was like, I don't even know what you call the opposite of an earth angel, but yeah. And so like I feel like my letter is hopefully received in a way that's like, yeah, I'm not this just like ragey, everyone did bad by me. It's actually like very distinct, the sides of that. Yeah. So we shall see.
Yeah, it's inspired me. I've got it in my notes, but I still haven't written it. I think when you shared that like 2 months ago, I was like, I should also write letters. And it's just been on my to-do list for months. And I'm like, I don't know how to get there yet, but
I did it like just sitting up on the top of the mountain with Maple. Like she was just like, Mum, you got to write these things. And Nigel's actually taken ownership of the coroner's one because I feel like we both need to express how it was for both of us. And yeah, like the coroner's thing's a whole other story.
After you received Maple back, now that was a shit show. I know that was a shit show. But Haley, our favorite angel of Death Keeper. Oh my God. And I also want to know about your Death Walker training. I'm like, shit, there's so many things I want to ask you about. Oh, wow. In such a short period of time, how much life can happen. Okay. So you received Maple back. Haley was such an angel in helping facilitate that process because they are ridiculous in getting your baby back to you. You can go into that. What was it like, and what was your community like? Because they just showed up for you in the most tremendous way.
Yeah, absolutely. So, our coroner process was just gnarly, like just trying to get her back. She actually ended up going with a different funeral director to the Sunshine Coast instead of being picked up by Haley and taken to Moolumba. And so that was just like such an intense process. And again, it was like, you've lost my child, and like that feeling of like, I don't know where she is, I don't know how to keep her safe. Like, yeah, that's a whole other story, which we don't need to go into detail in now, but like just that disrespect of her just being thrown around like she's just a body. Like to us, she's our baby girl, you know. But Haley got her back down to Paperbark, and we went and had a sleepover with her, which was just like such the changing point for little Olive. Like she just like literally, we pulled up and she's like, Maple, your little, your big sister's here. And she just was like bopping her nose and touching her toes, and just like, it honestly, she came home changed. Like she got to have that, like she did not miss a moment, miss a beat of that visit because of the previous visit not going as it should have, or like not that it should have, but just not having the time to have that full completion. So that was really beautiful. But yeah, our community, like from day dot, just like showed up. Like from that vigil that was happening at the hospital to like the next day, everyone knew what time Maple was being taken. And so there was like a group of women and children that got together, and they were all singing the same songs and lighting candles and writing her notes and just holding us from afar. And when we arrived home from the hospital, already a huge like altar had been set up. They'd already printed photos of her. And this was like, you know, a day later, you know, like it wasn't the time frame of us getting out of the hospital and being in the hospital so short, but like they'd get framed all these photos and they'd put sunflowers there and crystals and candles. And we walked in and there was food and there was warm socks and there were balms and activities for Olive. Like our table, our bench was just full of just love, you know. And immediately they pulled together this like group app calendar thing that was free, and everyone could just book in. And so for the first like 4 weeks until her celebration, we had people in cleaning, providing food. There was meal trains. There was like, I'm pretty sure it was like over 6 weeks of us not cooking dinner because people were just dropping food. And like each day, like someone would be checking in and saying like, what do you guys actually need? And so Olive was like a big thing for the first like 2 weeks. Nige and I were just like struggling to like, I was getting milk in. I had all of like that physical stuff happening. I had mastitis. I had people massaging my breasts for like days on end, like just trying to help, like tinctures, all these things happening. I also was having like severe night terrors. Because what I later found out from the psychologist was basically the brain's predictive. So at the times that I was going through the things overnight and into the early hours of her like finding out she was dying and her passing and everything, I was waking up in those like terrors and like responses. And so I just had like lots of women just trying to support like all of my
everything that was happening for me emotionally, physically, mentally, like spiritually, all the things. And so I had women coming, like wrapping me up, like wrapping my belly and massaging my legs and making sure I was taking what I needed to be taking. Like our naturopath was onto all of that. There was an olive train, so families would come and just spend time with their children and care for her and make sure she was okay. And this went on, as I said, like the whole 4 weeks of us trying to get Maple back and taking her for the ceremony, which was like 4 weeks later from when she passed. So also, like, I had the vision of what I wanted for Maple's celebration, and I just like put all of the to-do lists, all the job lists, like in this same app, and then people were just like taking jobs. Like my brain, as you would have known, like just stopped working. Like I literally could not think. And that went on for like such a long time. I was like, is my brain ever coming back? Like, it was so crazy that like my prefrontal cortex just like could not do anything. Like I could see it and I could express it, but I couldn't actually be the one physically buying, ordering, sorting. So they all just took jobs, and on the day we all showed up, and it just got put together, you know? So yeah, like I'm so grateful, and I feel like it really is a gift from Maple in a lot of ways. Like when I look back, I'm just like, you know, yes, it's one thing for us to like open our doors and allow people in, but I feel like to witness people like that closely in their grief and to hold that space, however, whatever little or big role you had, is like touching the edges of death. And I feel like being in that environment, you're forever changed, because it's like you realize that life is so precious. Like you realize that you can't just like keep doing the things that you've always done. Like I can see how people are starting to go like, oh, I don't want to do that anymore. Like, why was I doing this? Like for me, I don't know about you, but my yeses and nos are so clear since Maple passed. It's just like, yeah, that's a hard no. It might have been a maybe. Now it's a hard no. You know, like it's so funny, like how I'm like ruthless. But yeah, like I think that it was a gift to our community, and just like I know that in the future, like if someone passed in their family, they might not go the traditional way of funeral because they've witnessed Hayley, or if someone died really close to them, that they'd open their doors and actually be graciously receiving in that space. Like I had to, because I was on my knees. Like I literally couldn't parent. My milk situation was so intense. My mental situation was so intense that it was almost like I can't actually do this on my own. Like I actually need you guys to come. And so I feel like, yeah, it's a gift for everyone in like, and from that space, whoever was actually holding that space, like is forever changed in their own ways. And I really do believe that's like Maple's gift to everyone. Yeah.
What do you feel like some of the most helpful things people did or said to you were?
So said, like in the initials, like I feel like holding the higher perspective of Maple's path was so helpful. Everyone sort of banding together on that and like being like, you were led to this, like she wanted this, this is how it was meant to be. I also remember like one of my girlfriends, like there was like some gossip going on in the community, and I remember her looking at me and like looking me in the eyes with a finger and like going, know your fucking truth, you know, like, and just like making me sit in that, like, you know, doesn't matter what's going on out there, like, you know. That was like, they were like really great things said. And I think in terms, and also just like feeling into Maple's magic, like everyone would be sharing, they'd seen a dragonfly, they'd seen this, they're like, you know, and so everyone felt this like energy of Maple and they would share that with me. I think that was really special. And then in terms of doing, it was all the things that my brain had no capacity to do. So like food, cooking, cleaning, helping us with Olive, but also like the like physical side of things, like massaging my breasts, making sure I had the tinctures I needed, like going and getting whatever vitamins or whatever could be supportive, like I feel, and then on top of that was just conversations. I could just be. Like, I felt when I was sitting on that couch, whoever was on duty, like on duty, and I laugh about it because it was literally like 5 people on duty every day, but like whoever was on duty who would come and just sit on my couch, I felt like the people entering the space knew that that was sacred. Like, they had a role to play that not everyone in the community was getting, because our community is so large, obviously, in our work. And I feel like, well, from what I know, is that that was really integral. Like, it was, I could just, when you were sitting on my couch, I was just raw, and I was like, so just nothing other than what I was in that moment. And I felt like that was being held, like, within that home. And so yeah, very grateful.
That's so
Yeah, so grateful.
yeah, there's not a lot of people that can hold that space or know how to. And the fact that you had that's amazing. Like, big kudos to so many people in your community for showing up the way that they did.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like they all felt it as a big honour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like I could just keep going in a million different directions here because there's so many things that I want to talk to, like how incredible your ceremony was and know about your death walker training and everything that's been going on since then. But I think we've been talking for a really long time, and so maybe what I'm going to do is get you to come back and we'll do a part 2.
That'd be amazing.
Because you've expanded so many people's worlds and you've expanded mine as well, even going through this loss myself. And I think these conversations are just so important, and the knowledge that people need to gain and the awareness that needs to be gained is really important. So if you'd like to come back on, I'd love to have you another time.
I'd love to come back on. And I'm just so grateful for you for like creating this space. And yeah, I feel like the longer that I'm on this journey, the more I'm like, wow, people need to know this, people need to know this, people need to know this. And so I feel like together, collectively, where there's all these strong mamas, I feel like these babies chose well to be like, we are not going to stand for this anymore. Like, it can't continue. And I do feel like there's a movement happening where we can create change, like waves of change. So thank you for allowing this like platform where we can come and share our stories. Grateful for you.
Yeah, I'm really grateful for you too. It sucks that we're in this, but I'm really grateful.
Yeah, thank you.